You've seen
What do you think of the
Andor?
Acolyte?
Why won't you admit
The
that your
Jedi are
ideas about
infallible,
the
and
Sith
any
are
criticism of them
stupid?
is supporting
Star Wars
genocide.
Kennedy is responsible
Dave
for everything.
Filoni will save
Did we
Star
talk about The Last
Wars.
Jedi for the 1800th time? I can't help but look at my window sometimes and go, are you guys still here? Rogue One is a Rebel movie, so I wasn't interested. People tell me, oh, it's good and you have to see it because it's really good. And I say, no, that's okay. I trust you. You wouldn't lie to me. Lil, if that's the case, why do you think Star Wars is fine? Well, first of all, I am eternally picky about media I consume, so me liking something isn't really a prerequisite to it being good, or even fine. Hell, my favorite film of all time, and the reason I keep banging the drum of low-stakes storytelling, is John Q. It's a film about a man whose son needs a life-threatening heart transplant, and after getting dicked around by the American healthcare system, straight up takes a hospital hostage at gunpoint to get his son the surgery he needs. Banging the drum of low-stakes storytelling. Friends went off the air in 2004 and has been the punching bag of Twitter users for almost as long. Yet, see, even if you didn't like it, the advantage of having a ratings powerhouse like Friends constantly earning $1 billion every year was that the studio and network could eat a loss, and they had a 24-hour schedule to fill anyway, and making a less popular show to fill a time slot and get some money was better than getting no money for dead air. Broadcast television was kind of a use it or lose it situation. But in the era of streaming, it's better business sense to make fewer shows. Problem with this business model is that so many people complain about the blandness of TV, yet will still look you in the eyes and say this is better. Couple all of this with the fact that a lot of these shows are trying really hard to emulate the look and feel of cinema, and you have shows with large budgets needing to fit into a subscription model, which are therefore shorter and more homogenous than ever for mass appeal. It's the problem we discussed regarding video games. The industry has pushed towards a more lavish style of production, but the studios involved are penny pinching like crazy. They're all film-length stories ballooned up to 6 hours, and with all the pacing issues therein. Problem with this business model is that so many people complain about the blandness of TV, yet will still look you in the eyes and say this is better. I get a lot of shit for talking about how much I love low-stakes storytelling. This is the last film Penny Marshall ever made, stating that she was done with filmmaking because her movies were about heart, but the industry didn't want to make those kind of films anymore. This is what I mean when I say low-stakes storytelling. And I have seen people sneer at me for this. People who scream at me that I need to watch adult media. Yeah, bitch, I fucking do. The films themselves are more concerned with the family dynamics of the Skywalkers and the people caught in their orbit. The point of drama for the original series is about the relationship between Luke and Vader. The prequels largely center on the relationship between Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme. In both trilogies, the Galactic Civil War and the Clone Wars are largely happening in the margins and are greatly affected by those familial dynamics. Star Wars has always had a political bent to it, but that political bent is largely secondary to the family soap opera.
Anyway, so I realized that Senator Palpatine was using the Trade Federation to create a crisis to advance himself politically. Like that was the plot, I think. But the conflict from the blockade and the subsequent invasion is the entire movie. I want you to tell me who the main character of the Phantom Menace was. I can tell you it's not the Jedi. They were just on some kind of boring mission that they didn't really care about. Plus they're fucking boring themselves.
What happens to one of you will affect the other. You must understand this.
It wasn't Queen Amidala, because she was some foreign queen the movie was certainly not really about specifically either. You might be thinking that it's Anakin, because he was like a slave and saved the day at the end by accidentally blowing up the starship. But the audience doesn't meet Anakin until 45 minutes into the movie. And then the things that are happening around him are pretty much out of his control or understanding. If a protagonist has no concept of what's going on or what's at stake, then there's no real tension or drama. Without that, there's no story. So the conclusion is that there isn't one. With this sequence, it took 58,000 people to make. 917,000 man-hours and 243 million hours of computer animation. They weren't working on some complicated construction project. It was just a scene in a movie where two guys fight. This entire sequence is the film version of compensating for lack of a story and ability to connect with the audience on an emotional level. The biggest problem with Revenge of the Sith and all the Star Wars prequels in general was ironically Darth Vader himself. He was way overemphasized in these films for some reason. And this is the reason why these movies don't work. But if you look back at it from a story perspective, in A New Hope, he was just a weirdo in a suit. He was a part of a bigger story. But to me, he just seemed like one of the bad guys that carried out the business of the Empire. He was like a Nazi SS officer that would go in with the troops, smash things up, and let you know that the Empire meant business. He was not Space Jesus. Jesus, I'm so sorry you had to be in this review. Please forgive me, Lord. I know you hated the movie you told me. Vader's totally overblown importance started with the implied religiousness of a virginal birth to the suddenly invented notion of some kind of space prophecy that made absolutely no sense at all.
Only one Star Wars show post-Disney is that kind of episodic story, and it's the one everyone likes. When you make stories trying to be these long serialized plots about the very identity of the Force itself on a metaphysical level, you sacrifice a lot of things that makes TV worth watching in the first place. And the end result is flat characters with little time spent on them, feeling more like a celebrity guest on a sitcom than an actual person, because all the episodes that would flesh them out as a person have been culled. But don't you dare tell someone that. The idea that focusing everything on a serialized plot has downsides and isn't an objective improvement in all forms is apparently unthinkable, in spite of the fact that literally all of the greatest TV series ever made were in fact episodic, and most of them were multi-camera sitcoms, the other thing that the discourse absolutely loathes with a passion. Now we're deep in the streaming ghetto and everyone's realizing, hey, this tech bro libertarian bullshit project might just be a tech bro libertarian bullshit project. Multiple sectors of the entertainment industry have increasingly pursued attempts to make bigger projects with broad mass appeal, which has led to many genres of films, TV shows, video games, and even entire books straight up vanishing as industry homogenization continues to whittle away at art until there's nothing left.
People ask me if I worry about the future of the interactive arts in this era of AAA being a constant stream of soulless exploitative knockoffs, but I'm not worried because we've been here before. At the end of the 90s, games like Quake 3 and Unreal Tournament tried to convince us that we didn't really want artistic single-player PC games when we could just pay to run on hamster wheels all day. And look what the 2000s brought us. Deus Ex, Thief 2, Bioshock, Portal, it's always a phase. In the long run, the only eternal guarantor of success is a quality product well made, ideally with tits on the front. The money to be made from knocking off what's popular and exploiting the stupid always dries up eventually, if only because the stupids die out from daring each other to headbutt the ceiling fan.
There is no such thing as peak fiction.